Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Career Solutions by Aashna Jain. Today, we have a very special guest with us. I've been following her very keenly on LinkedIn since the last few months. Her name is Miss Anuja Pethia. Thank you so much for joining, ma'am. She's a graduate and she's an alumnus of NLIU Bhopal. After that, she practiced as an advocate in MP High Court, post which she sat for civil services examination, and then she became a bureaucrat and she was working with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. After that, interestingly, she worked there for a couple of years and, she left her job. We're going to be introspecting more into that in the interview as well. She left that and now she is currently practicing in the Supreme Court as an advocate on record. So I think it's a very phenomenal and an inspirational journey for even somebody like me who's even left law since so many years. But just to see this journey gives me immense, fulfillment. So I think I'm really keen on deep diving into the conversation today. So thank you so much, ma'am, for for accepting our invitation on the first.
Thanks for having me, Aashna.
Right. So, ma'am, we'll just quickly dive into the questions then. So I've seen a lot of students wanting to appear for civil services examinations, while they are in law school. So I wanted to understand from you that when and how did you decide that, you want to sit for the CSE, first of all? And secondly, uh, while you were in such a top tier college of the country as well, did you not have the pressure of sitting through placements, or did you not feel that there's a trade-off that say if I prepare for the exam, or if I have that kind of a goal, I will lose out on, the corporate law firm opportunity as such.
Yeah, so I did sit for placements. I did get a PPO from Trilegal, but when I went to intern in the corporate team, I just didn't think that I enjoyed it too much. So I didn't take it up. After that, I did my master's. I was pretty happy studying that, and then I came back to India, and I just thought I'll take one attempt, and somehow I cleared it in my first attempt. And I was lucky to have done that. I took civil services because I always wanted to see if I can do it, because it's a very challenging examination, and the job prospect is amazing. I mean, once you get into the services, the sort of opportunities and leadership role you get at a very early age is phenomenal. So that's what inspired me to take the exam, and I worked there for 2 years, and then I realized that maybe I'm not the best fit for civil services. Maybe I'll be happier independent. So then I quit.
Okay. Okay. And ma'am, say while you were preparing for the exam, of course, it's not like any other exam in the country. It's believed to be one of the toughest exams all over the world if, had a comparison with any other exam. So what kind of a lifestyle do you think you had? Because, you practiced for 2 years and then immediately you sort of, you cleared the exam, and there was and with a very good rank as well, right? So I think, so any tips on any kind of lifestyle changes or any kind of habits that one can sort of develop while they are in law school itself, or anything that you think law students can have an edge in terms of this kind?
Yeah, I think there was a huge lifestyle change. I mean, you need to be extremely well read. You need to read everything, like from newspapers to books. It's not like your usual exam where there's a set curriculum, because everything under the sun can come. And it's something that you might be reading in a bus or in a metro might help you, gain 2 marks in prelims, which is which may help you clear the prelims. So it's a huge lifestyle change. I mean, once you start preparing for the exam full on, it requires a lot of discipline. For 1 year, I don't think I used internet too much. I didn't have a smartphone. So I almost locked myself up with a lot of books, and I tried to do a lot of answer writing. So it requires a lot of commitment for sure. And you need to take care of your mental health as well, because it's not easy being in a room studying for an entire year without knowing whether you'll be successful or not. So lifestyle change, yes, definitely big time. You can't do anything but study for the time you're taking the exam, because it's extremely competitive.
Right. I think I'm just glad that you didn't belittle the time that actually, you spent in preparing for the exam, considering I've seen a lot of people just saying out ki theek hai, it's just another exam and you'll be able to clear it. I'm just really happy that you brought out the real picture. So I'm really happy for
Yeah.
that. So moving on to the next question, and because you were a part of the Indian corporate law practice as well. So because most of the times IAS or IPS or IRS is something that's very say brought out in the Indian media. So that's something that people do have some idea about. So if you can just throw some light on the kind of job profile or the activities that are usually done as a part of the department that you work.
So, Indian Corporate Law Service is the youngest civil services. Essentially, you hold posts that have been created by the Companies Act or rules made under the Companies Act. So that would be ROC, Registrar of Companies, Official Liquidator, regional directors of companies, Directorate of Investigation and Inspection. So all of these posts, everything related to the Companies Act. So regulation of the corporate world is what you do. So while I was there, I was posted as assistant director in the regional director North region, where I was regional director does compounding of offenses under the Companies Act. So there are a lot of powers which have been delegated for you to regulate companies. So yeah, it's just the corporate regulator. You are essentially like a corporate regulator.
Okay, okay, understood. Also, now moving on to the the career trajectory that you had. Like, say you eventually left this department and then you started with your own practice. Now, and you said in your initial introductory question also that you felt that you were not again say cut out for this kind of a role. So, if you could just very briefly, of course, not going into any personal reasons, but like say professionally, what do you think? What made you take such a big step? Because this is one job, honestly speaking, people would kill to get any single day in a country like India. So what made you take a big decision like this?
Yeah, so quite honestly, it took me a lot of guts to sign that resignation because it took a lot of more than anything, it took a lot of work to get into that service. So I was always thinking whether it's worth leaving it or not. But at the end of the day, I think what matters is that when you go to office, you should be happy and you should like what you want to do. So when I took civil services, also my idea was to do something for the greater change because civil services it doesn't pay you money. It just gives you opportunities to do something or lead a change or do something extraordinary. And I thought that as a lawyer, I mean, as an advocate, I have the independence to decide what I want to do, which you don't have as a civil servant. There is a lot of hierarchy, and there are a lot of permissions, approvals. The setup is entirely different, whereas as a lawyer you choose your own causes and you choose your own clients. So that's what made me resign. I always thought that I'll be happier being independent and doing my own work and choosing what I want to do. So that's what made me resign.
Right. Now, after resigning from, this department, you've taken up a very difficult thing because, I mean, if I'm not wrong, you're a first generation lawyer as well, right? And then you started practicing in the Supreme Court. You have your own law firm, Swarnim Chambers. So, could you like throw some light on I understand that, of course, choosing your own causes is one thing, but then, there are some practical challenges also that say one faces as a first generation lawyer, say, to get clients, to get empanelments, etc. But thankfully, I think by the grace of God, I've been able to like what I've been able to understand from the journey is that you've been like doing it really well, pretty well for yourself. So, any light that you can throw on that, how can one charter their way through a similar situation, like say if there's a first generation. Yes.
Yeah, so see, for being a first generation lawyer is very tough. When I left the services, I did not, I underestimated how difficult it will be to get my own clients and set up my own practice. I thought ki once I have the brand name of being an ex-civil servant, I'll get clients, but that's not how it worked at all because litigation is a very, family sort of profession where if you come from a certain family, you certainly have a big advantage. So I just dug my feet in. I would go to my seniors and even I would ask that, how do I get clients? How will I become? How will I have my own chamber? And everybody told me one thing, which is just put your feet, just just stay there. Just put your head down and stick there. So that's what I did. I mean, I just stuck around, learned as much as I could from filing to drafting to arguing, and eventually I think 3 years later or something. I mean, just clients start walking in. You don't know where they come from, but someone might see you arguing in court and be like, wow, you were so good, I want to refer you more clients. So ultimately it's your work quality. Just if every case you get initially, I mean, don't go for fees. I didn't go for fees. I would just grab onto every client or every opportunity I would get and try to do my best, and somebody will see your work and refer you work. I mean, that's how it went for me, at least.
Right, right. So, ma'am, in that process, do you think personal branding also helps? Like, say, you have a very good social media presence. So, do you think that has at all helped you in any manner, say, even in getting, say, a single client, or do you think that's just simply because you like doing and you like spreading knowledge, within your peers?
I mean, I have gotten clients through LinkedIn. They haven't been too many, but yeah, I mean, since I have increased my social media presence, there are people who I have been able to help. I mean, and these are not necessarily paying clients. These are people General people, for example, a woman who might doesn't know who to go to get a divorce, or doesn't have finances to go to a divorce, she might text you on LinkedIn and ask you for your help. So clients certainly do approach you on LinkedIn, and more than that, I mean, it establishes your credibility. Like if you are posting something about any field of law, and it shows that you have depth of knowledge and you're serious about what you're doing, because there are a lot of lawyers in the market and you don't know who to trust. So I think in that sense, having a personal brand on LinkedIn and posting things does help. It when a client comes to me through LinkedIn, I think they sort of know that I'm serious about my law practice and I know what I'm doing. So that point is there.
Right. Also, now that brings me to the second part of the practice, that say you've been doing really well at the Supreme Court level, if again I'm not wrong. So now, say, did you start off by working under some senior advocate or like some designated senior counsel or somebody in the industry, or you started off on your own? Now, considering, say, if you started off on your own also, would you recommend this to, say, fresh graduates, say somebody who's just out of law school and they want to be in full-time litigation? Do you think they can like directly jump onto the Supreme Court practice, or they should do the trial court and then the high court and then moving on to this?
See, I think you should always do trial court, high court, and then come to Supreme Court. But again, litigation, there's no set pattern. The only reason why I say you need to know lower court practices, because in Supreme Court you will be dealing with files from trial court and high court, and you have to manage a case around that. In Supreme Court, we often don't talk to clients, but it's the papers that we have to go through, and we have to figure out what was the problem in the impugned judgment. So you must know the process. Without knowing the process, I think in the Supreme Court bar, you might be a little two steps behind somebody who's practiced in trial court or high court. And yeah, so and as far as I'm concerned, I worked with an advocate on record for some time before I became independent, because I really wanted to understand the Supreme Court practice well. Because in Supreme Court, it's not just about drafting and arguing; it's also about listing, how to file, what to file, which applications go. It's yeah. So I learned under somebody, and then I went independent.
Right, right. This brings me again, like, because you mentioned that you work with somebody who was an advocate on record. You yourself are an AOR with the Supreme Court. So again, do you think that exam is, I wouldn't even want to call it hype. Do you think like it's worth it? Like, say, it's studying so much for the exam A, it's worth it. And does everybody get opportunity after, say, clearing the AOR exam? And if yes, what kind of opportunities can, say, one expect, after clearing this?
So I would say it's worth it, especially if you're a first generation lawyer, because it puts you apart from other lawyers. That's one thing. Second is it does open up a lot of opportunities, because an AOR is sort of the gateway to the Supreme Court. Nobody can go to the Supreme Court without an AOR. So you need a good AOR who knows how to how to get things filed, listed, etc. So you open up a new channel of work. Like, just there's one Supreme Court and there are so many high courts, and all the lawyers in the high courts want to come to Supreme Court and they need an AOR, and there are such, the number of AORs is very few. So of course it does open up a lot of opportunities of work. Even for my own practice, I would say that it did get slightly accelerated after I cleared the exam.
So, ma'am, if somebody is studying for the AOR exam, and I've seen that you've been very kind enough to even upload your answer sheets and everything. So that's like phenomenal work that you've been doing. But even apart from that, say if you had to guide students who are watching this interview, let's say if somebody's preparing for the exam, would you say recommend any resources or any kind of habits right from the starting of the litigation career, or anything to say that they sail through the exam for that reason?
I would say if you have the chance, just practice in Supreme Court for an year, because there are some small procedures which you'll only understand once you practice. However, if you can't practice, then I mean, the Supreme Court website has all the resources for the AOR exam. I mean, they almost remain static, they don't change. So just take out 2 months before the exam. It's not a very tough exam. If you just put your heart to it for like 2 months, you can clear it. Practice and procedure requires a lot of memorization. Drafting is one paper where a lot of people struggle, because it's time consuming and we are not used to draft with our with our hands. We are used to typing, so that's something one must practice. And ethics is again doable, it's not very tough. The last paper is what? Ethics, practice procedure,
I think
drafting, and
judgments. Judgments.
Leading judgment is a huge paper. It took me a lot of time. So you must, for that is one paper for which you must read all the judgments, make your notes, because you can't study it 1 week before the exam, all the judgments. There are 60, 70 judgments. So it's very painstaking to study that. Apart from that, it's brutal. So just, it requires time. It's not very tough. It just requires you to be committed.
Okay. Also, ma'am, I think one last question. It's been a great interview. I just want to understand that, say, because you are from NLIU, Bhopal, and you yourself also got placement, and you worked at Trilegal and everything. So, the culture in such law schools, and even these days, upcoming culture is that everybody just wants to be in a law firm, considering it's relatively easier, and there's more stability in terms of income and terms of environments that you're exposed to. But thankfully there are some students who would still want to enter into litigation in the traditional sense of, say, being in a chamber and not, say, being in the dispute resolution team of a law firm. So for them, do you have any kind of tips, like, say, someone once told me that you should always, like, say, stick to one lawyer, so that you can understand how they work and contribute to their chamber well before you even graduate out of college, so that once you graduate you can start contributing in a more meaningful manner. Now, I'm not sure how valuable or not valuable the tip is. It seemed logical at that time, when they told me. So, do you think you have a similar tip or anything which can help somebody who's literally charting their way through a litigation career and litigation in the traditional sense?
Yeah, I mean, see, I have had a very zigzag career trajectory, so I don't know if I should be advising someone on this. But I mean, when in law school, I interned a lot. I interned with law firms, litigation chambers in different cities, Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, to figure out what I want to do, even though I, I couldn't, I guess. But in law, I think in college, you should just focus on internships and building a rapport with people you meet. I mean, I think in our field, the value of professional relationships is something which is not taught to a lot of students, that more than the work you do, you must go there and people should remember you for the work you've done. So 5 years later, or even later than, like, even today, I have a very good rapport with people I interned with, which must have been like what, more than 10 years back. So, and it has come useful. So just build professional relationships so that after 5 years you can figure out what you want to do. And just enjoy college. I mean, I think people are working too much in, like, focusing too much on internships. Intern, of course, give yourself exposure, but at the end of the day, you will be able to finally figure out what you want to do only after you graduate and actually start working as a lawyer. So I
Right.
don't think you can get the full experience in college.
Right. Perfect. Perfect. So I think that was a great interview. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today. Do you have some final parting words for people, who just graduated out of law school and, say, maybe who are still struggling to find a job, who are still struggling to find a career trajectory for themselves?
Nothing. Just be patient. It'll all work out. It all works out for everybody.
I'm glad. I'm just glad you said this. Thank you so much. And
All right.
yeah, thank you.